Warm greetings from the Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering, Rajiv Institute of Technology, Hassan. We welcome you all to the first day of Faculty Development Program on Advances in Signal Processing and Wireless Communication in association with IETE Mysore Center. I would like to introduce today's dynamic speaker, Dr. Veena Karjagi. She is currently serving as Associate Professor, Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering, Siddhaganga Institute of Technology, Tumkur. Dr. Veena Karjagi has her completion of BE and ME degrees from BMS College of Engineering, Bangalore University, and has completed her PhD from IIT Bombay in the field of speech processing. She has a teaching experience of nearly 20 years and she is currently guiding 3 PhD scholars in her research area. The two guided projects of her, namely exploring a novel approach for speaker recognition in a multi-speaker environment, and a second one, improving the intelligibility of disartic speech. These two projects have been funded by AICTE New Delhi for their innovative ideas. Madam has presented 2 invited talks and has attended more than 10 workshops. Dr. Veena Karjagi has 2 publication details to her account, one in IEEE and another one in Elsewhere Journal. And also her research contributions are presented in 13 international conferences. To her credit, she is a reviewer for Springer Journal on Circuits, Systems and Signal Processing, Journal of Intelligent Systems and IEEE Access. Madam, thank you very much for being with us. We would like to hear from you eagerly.
Hello, welcome to all. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Aravind for giving me an opportunity to share my knowledge with all of you. My area of research is signal processing, that means processing or extracting information from the signal. For example, our brain processes information that we receive from our sensors. Research in the area of signal processing has been associated with machine learning from past for more than a decade. So in the current scenario, instead of talking about only signal processing, I have planned to I have planned to discuss research in signal processing with machine learning. So I have divided my talk into 2 sessions. In the first session, I'll be talking about applications related to one-dimension signal processing with machine learning. And in the second session, I'll be talking more on the research that I have been doing from past 4 to 5 years. From past 4 to 5 years, I have been working in the area of pathological speech signal processing. So in the second session, the discussion will be on pathological signal processing for machine learning. Okay. So thank you all. Let us start the first session. Okay. Signal processing for machine learning. Contents. First, I'll discuss why signal processing for machine learning, then related applications with one-dimension signals. As I mentioned already, in the first session, I'll be discussing only on applications related to one-dimension signals. Later in the second session, I have planned to talk about I'll be giving a special attention to pathological speech processing for machine learning, and also I'll be demonstrating a graphical user interface, which is the end product of pathological speech processing with machine learning. So let us start with what is signal processing. Signal processing is extracting information from the signal. So here you can see a time domain representation of the speech signal. And when we process the signal, we end up in getting a set of parameters. That means now whatever the parameters we have extracted here, they represent the signal. That means we should extract the parameters such that those parameters should be the proper representatives of their signal. So this is about the meaning of signal processing. That's why signal representation plays a major role. Representation in the sense, am I going to I am going to represent the signal with all the samples present in the signal, or am I going to represent the complete signal by using a small number of parameters or features, and how good are those features? All these are very important when it comes to applications of signal processing with machine learning. That's why signal representation plays a major role in all the applications where signal processing is associated with machine learning. Next, coming to machine learning, it provides systems the ability to automatically learn and improve from experience without being explicitly programmed. That means in the beginning, we will not do any programming and say that computer, like, you do this. It is not that. Instead, we will be just giving a set of input samples and set of output samples, and the system is allowed to learn from these examples. That's why it is automatically learn and improve from experience. So for example, here we are given some images of apple, one image of orange, two images of banana, and these are the input side. And also we are saying the system that like, if this is the image, it should be apple. If it is this, it is orange. That means we give information about both inputs as well as outputs while training the system, so that by looking at these combinations of inputs and outputs, system will be able to learn. That means system will be able to come up with a mapping that is best suitable to convert input variable X to output variables Y. So that's why automatically learn from the set of input and output examples given. This happens in training. Learning happens in training. And also improve from experience. That means more the number of samples you give in training, more the system performance will be good. That's why whenever it comes to signal processing with machine learning, there are two things which are very important to remember. One is signal representation. How are you going to represent the signal? Are you going to give only the images, or are you going to give some more information to the system? Like, if the color is red, put it as apple. If the shape is this curved shape, call it as banana. And if it is curved shape and yellow color, call it as banana. So if I am giving this additional tips to the system, then that is about the signal representation. That's why the extracted features which are representative of the signal should be good. Then the system performance will also be good. Now, let us start with a discussion on examples of one-dimensional signals and processing of these one-dimension signals with machine learning. Some examples are listed here. So first, let us start with the speech signal. All these are one-dimension signals. So let us start with the speech signal. Speech signal has information about the content. That means what is being spoken. Language, which language it is. Gender, accent, emotion, and dialect of the speaker. And also, speech signal gives us some information about the pathological voice disorders. Is there any disorder in the voice? Is the voice normal or abnormal? This information can also be extracted from the speech signal. Like, as we know, if the person is having cough or cold, there will be some changes in the voice. That's also a pathological disorder. So once you have the speech signal, we can get all this information from the speech signal. Why do you want to detect the accent? Why do you want to detect the emotion of the speaker? Emotion identification of a speaker is very helpful for someone who is going to respond. That means if the machine can understand the emotion of the speaker, accordingly the machine can interact with the user. Similarly, accent. Why do you think accent information is important? If we are learning the other language other than your native language, naturally for that language accent will be different. Number of, and the sounds used in other languages are different. Kannada has set of some sounds, English has set of some other sounds. So when sounds are different, accent also changes. So this accent information is very helpful when we are learning a second language. Now coming to music signal, in music signal processing, one typical application is genre classification. That means classifying given music signal as belonging to pop music, classical music, folk music, etc. Why do we want to do this? Because if we are able to categorize the music signal database as belonging to either pop music or classical music or whatever it is, then it is possible to generate a playlist of similar genres so that we can play the type of music which we are interested in. Next, second application is singing scoring or singing rating. This is like one can learn singing automatically with the help of a machine. So machine will help you in learning singing or improving your singing. So if you can, machine will give some lyrics to you, the known lyrics, and you are supposed to sing the song. And in the database already, machine will have the some features related to that particular song. It could be the pitch, or it could be the way the harmonics are changing in that song. So similar to that, the singer is also supposed to sing. So when you sing that song, the machine will extract the same features from your samples also and tries to match, and it gives a score. That means it is able to rate your singing. So this is singing rating. Next, query by humming. Query by humming is like you can hum a song and ask the system to play the song for you. So it is similar to singing rating. Here, instead of singing, you will be humming, and the system will match the features of your hum with the one which it has in the database, and it plays the song for you. So all these applications involve music signal processing with machine learning. Similarly, biomedical signals such as electrocardiographic signal, ECG signal, which is used for learning the heart functioning, and also EEG signal from the brain, which is used to evaluate the brain activity. To when even for, with these signals also, like we can associate signal processing with machine learning. Now coming to this, very common these days, people are using this personal digital assistants. For examples, they are Apple Siri, Amazon's Alexa, and Google's voice assistant. I have just mentioned a few here. So you know that most of you might have used these personal digital voice assistants. For example, Google voice assistant gets enabled when I say hi Google. So all these get enabled with a keyword. And how exactly they work? What happens inside these digital assistants? There are two subsystems in these. First one is speech recognition, where the system listens to the speech and converts speech to text. What are the challenges here? Humans have highly diverse set of tones as well as accents. My mother tongue is Kannada. Whenever I speak English, I speak in a different accent. And when a Tamilian speaks English, his accent is different. So the system should be able to cope up with all this. That means the learning should be very good for a machine. Whenever you put the machine for training, you should provide all possible samples with wide variance. That means varieties of samples should be given while training. So these are the challenges involved in speech recognition. That is the first part of these personal digital assistants. Next, once the speech gets converted to text, the next problem is natural language processing. So what is this? Here, the text that we obtain from speech recognizer will be read, will be understood, and the system should be able to decode the uh, sentence, decode the text. That means it should be able to derive some meaning from the text information. So what are the challenges involved in this? Same sentence can be spoken in different ways. Like I can ask Siri, can you set me an alarm for 7 a.m. tomorrow? Can you please wake me up at 7 a.m. tomorrow? So there are different ways of speaking the same sentence, all of which will give you the same meaning. So the digital assistant should be able to decode that all these are one and the same. So this is an example challenge for natural language processing. So basically in personal digital assistants, first speech recognition happens followed by natural language processing. What are the problems associated with these personal digital assistants? Have you faced any problems with when you use these? The common problem is whenever you try to use them in some background noise environment, they may or may not work. So next slide we'll see how to improvise on the performance of these digital voice assistants. So here like outdoor noise environments are railway station noise, airport noise, street noise, park noise. So there are different categories. I have just listed a few here. Similarly, domestic environment. In the domestic environment, it could be a television voice, mixer, pressure cooker, refrigerator, washing machine, water tap, baby cry, etc. These are the possible noise signals, noise components in a domestic environment. So when we are using this personal digital assistants, inside a home. Usually, in general, they are used at home. So it is good if the system can detect the sound event, if the system can detect the sound event and improve the performance of speech recognition. That means the system should be able to detect any additional sound event so that it will be able to improve the it will be able to identify that, okay, this background is from mixie, this is a background noise from pressure cooker, so that it can use an appropriate train model and thereby improving the performance of uh, digital voice assistants. Another application related to speech signal processing with machine learning is classification of real and recorded or artificial sounds. That means, like if we have a personal device, and if I have given a voice password to my personal device, and the device will get enabled only when I speak that password. And if somebody else records that password with my voice and plays that, the system should not get enabled because it is a spoofed signal. So the system should be able to distinguish between the real signal and the spoofed speech signal. That is real versus recorded or artificial sound classification engine. So this is also one of the application of speech signal processing with machine learning. Audio scene classification. So this is useful in monitoring children and elderly with a daily routine. For example, if the kids are not at home after school, that means the system will be the system will be able to identify some familiar voices in the given time interval, maybe around 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 to 4 in the afternoon. When the kids are about to return from school, the system will be designed to uh, 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 listen to the sounds, and it should be able to say, okay, it is a familiar voice, it is the voice of the kids at home, so that the system will ensure that the kids are back at home. Otherwise, it sends an alarm. Similarly, to monitor the elderly people at home, if there is any intruder at home because of some unfamiliar voice, the system will send an alarm saying that there is somebody else at home now. So these are some applications of audio scene classification. Next, another application is spoken document summarization. So in a meeting, whenever a meeting happens, instead of preserving the complete recordings of the meetings, why not store only the summary? If there is a meeting going on for 2 hours, instead of storing the complete spoken document, we can just store the summary of the meeting. So how to automatically do this spoken document summarization? Basically, it's a very difficult task where there are many things which happen. So the important things are listed here. The identification of the following items. So which are those speech acts, first of all? That means it can be greetings, it can be declaration, it can be a request. So there are some keywords: greetings, good morning, warm welcome to all of you. Similarly, request: may I have, may I ask your opinion, please? So these are requests. So the system should be able to capture these keywords, identify, spot these keywords, and understand that, like, this is like whenever somebody says good morning, it should understand, okay, this is, this is an important statement and it should be stored. Similarly, whenever somebody promises something in a meeting, whenever somebody warnings in a meeting, so those keywords should be captured and indicating that they are the important sentences. Basically, what happens here, instead of storing the complete spoken document, select the sentences which are having information and then store only those sentences. That's why we have to detect these keywords in the spoken document and store only sentences with those keywords. And it is not only this, the system should also be able to identify who spoke in that meeting in a particular time interval. Then it should say such and such a person said this, he promised this, he made this request. And also the system should be able to monitor the turn taking. First somebody speaks, next maybe for the next 10 minutes somebody else speaks. So this turn taking should, the system should be able to monitor this turn taking also. Now, after discussing all these applications of speech processing, because these were for normal speech. Now, let us move on to pathological speech. So this pathological speech means it is uh, speech disorders because of some illness. So distortion in speech resulting from illness. Basically, they result in voice disorders. And these voice disorders can be of two types. One is functional voice disorder, other one is organic voice disorder. Functional, as the name itself says, it is result of improper use of vocal fold mechanism when the physical structure is normal. That means vocal organs which are involved in speech production are normal, the structure is normal, but we have not used them properly. Maybe after screaming or due to overuse, it results in vocal fatigue. So this is an example of functional voice disorder. Coming to organic voice disorder, it can be structural or it can be neurogenic. I'll just show these two with examples of next 1 or 2 slides. Structural disorders. So here are the examples of structural disorders. You can see here, these are the vocal folds which vibrate when we speak. Whenever the vocal folds vibrate, then you will be able to listen to the sounds, hear to the sounds. So what is the problem here in this example? There is a polyp, there is a node here, because of which the air which flows through the between the vocal folds get obstructed. So that results in a voice disorder because it is this is due to the structural problem. So it is one of the structural disorders. Similarly, you might have heard of this cleft lip and cleft palate. Here you can see this child, its lip. There is a cleft in the lip. Because of that, the child cannot speak properly. Similarly, here you can see there is a cleft in the palate. Here, this is palate means upper part of the mouth. So there's a cleft in the palate. Because of that, whatever, even when the child starts speaking, it will not be intelligible speech. So here you can see that has been that has been made normal after a surgery here. And the next type of voice disorder is neurological disorder. This neurological disorder results because of stroke in the brain. So brain stroke, it is the main cause of this neurological disorder. And also these days, we have been coming across this elderly people with Parkinson's disease. So this is because of aging it happens, and symptoms are like you can see the person has bent forward and they'll be shivering always, like trembling in their trembling of extremities, and also the speech will also be disturbed. So this is a typical appearance of Parkinson's disease. So it is not just speech disorder, like there'll be many symptoms which will be shown, but speech changes, speech signal changes are also one of the symptoms of this Parkinson's disease. It is more commonly appearing in the elderly people these days. So what is the effect of voice disorders on speech? Already I mentioned few. Breathy voice, it results in breathy voice, it results in nasalized voice, it results in error in articulation. That means the person may not be able to articulate a typical phoneme. Like somebody, instead of saying bark, the person may not be able to pronounce it as bark, instead he may pronounce it as park. But both are the words in English. So there could be error in articulation and there could be error in phonation. And because of all this, the speech will not be intelligible. There will be reduction in the intelligibility of speech. So one such disorder is dysarthria. This belongs to the category of neurological disorders. So dysarthria is a speech disorder where the person lacks control over the articulatory muscles. And the symptoms, I already mentioned few of the symptoms. We have been working in this with this dysarthric speech from past 4 to 5 years. And these are the databases which are available. In American English, there are 3 standard databases which are available. In Indian language also, there are 2 databases available, one in Indian English and one in Tamil Indian language. And these days there is a lot of research going on in this area. So people have started collecting the databases for dysarthric speech. Even we have also started this, and we have recorded the dysarthric speech from 2 speakers right now. So I'll just play a sample dysarthric speech along with the control speech. So first I'll play this dysarthric speech. I'll be playing one word uttered by a dysarthric speaker. After that, I'll play the same word when uttered by a control speaker. Okay.
Observation.
So now you heard both the voice samples. You will agree that dysarthric speech is difficult to understand, and this was just a word. When they try to utter a sentence, it is much more difficult to decode that information in the signal. So let us. It is possible to improve the intelligibility of dysarthric speech by giving some speech therapy. This is basically done by a speech language pathologist. A speech language pathologist, he first makes an assessment of severity of the disease, and accordingly he gives the therapy. So in general, a standard way for this subjective scoring is to use FDA. FDA is a tool, Franchise Dysarthria Assessment Tool, which is shown in this slide. There are a number of parameters which are used. The first 7 parameters are like by observation, by observing the person, while speaking, while at rest, the speech language pathologist will be able to draw some conclusion. And the last one, the eighth one here is related to intelligibility. So this intelligibility measurement has to be done with the help of speech signal only. So in speech, there can first the person will be asked to utter simple vowels, then isolated words, then sentences, then he'll be asked to converse with someone there. So with all these, the speech language pathologist will make an assessment regarding the intelligibility of the person's speech, and accordingly the therapy will be, speech therapy will be given to the dysarthric person. But what are the problems with this subjective scoring, which is done by SLPs? First of all, availability of SLPs itself, there is, dearth of speech language pathologists now, especially in the villages. They have to come from far villages to Bangalore or Mysore. You know, in Mysore, there is one such speech and hearing center, that is All India Institute of Speech and Hearing Center, AISH. Similarly, in Bangalore also, there are many private speech and hearing institutes. So naturally, it is expensive, and it requires more professional SLPs, and even they have to spend so much of time with each dysarthric person. So because of all these problems, and also another important problem is like listener rating. That means one SLP might give some rating, other one, somebody else may give some other rating. So accordingly, therapy also differs. So to avoid all this, it is preferable to switch from subjective mode to objective mode or automatic. So we have been working in the area of this automatic assessment of intelligibility. In my next session, I'll talk more on automatic assessment of dysarthric speech intelligibility. Okay, these are the references used. Thank you.